Welcome to this explainer on Surah Al-Mutaffifin. You know, this specific text does something really incredible. It totally bridges the gap between our everyday commerce and some deeply profound spiritual realities. It basically shows us that our true character, yeah, it's tested right there in our daily mundane dealings. So today we're going to unpack its core ethical teachings, dive into the fascinating cosmic consequences it lays out, and even cover some practical recitation guides. Let's get right into it. So here's our game plan for today. We'll start with a quick introduction to Al-Mutaffifin, then examine the warning against fraud, contrast Sijin and Iliyin, talk about the stain on the heart, look at the ultimate reversal in the hereafter, and finally wrap things up with a tajweed practice guide. All right, Section 1. Introduction to Al-Mutaffifin, the defrauders. So this 83rd chapter of the Quran focuses on a very specific and honestly an all too common behavior. The term al-mutaffifin is usually translated as the defrauders, or those who give less. Basically, it's referring to people who aggressively demand their absolute full measure when they're on the receiving end, but they hypocritically cheat, even if it's just by a tiny fraction, when they are the ones giving. We're not just talking about grand theft here. We're talking about that subtle, everyday exploitation of others. Moving on to Section 2, the warning against fraud, hypocrisy in business. The text doesn't hold back at all. It addresses this deeply ingrained hypocrisy right out of the gate with a severe, uncompromising warning. Woe to those who give less. I mean, it signals from the very first word that our mundane financial transactions, like what we do at the local market or even shopping online, are deeply tied to faith. Religion, in this context, isn't just about worship rituals. It is fundamentally about absolute integrity whenever value changes hands. And verse 2 expands on this by explicitly calling out the double standard. It says, those who, when they have to receive by measure from men, demand full measure. They're literally weaponizing justice for their own gain. They expect absolute fairness, down to the exact penny, for themselves, while actively depriving others of what's rightfully theirs when the tables are turned. It's actually a pretty profound psychological insight into the kind of entitlement that drives corruption. So why do people actually fall into this trap? Well, verse 4 asks a really piercing question. Do they not think they will be resurrected? The text is pointing out that this kind of corruption stems directly from ignoring ultimate accountability. Think about it. If someone doesn't truly believe they'll ever have to answer for that cheated wage or that deceptive contract, well, corruption just spreads like wildfire. An awareness of a final reckoning is really the ultimate anchor for personal integrity. That brings us to Section 3. Sijin and Iliyin contrasted. The cosmic records. To really grasp the cosmic consequences of our actions, the sources present this incredibly stark contrast between two very different registries. On one side, you have Sijin. This is described as a confined, restrictive, and honestly humiliating register that permanently records the deeds of the wicked. Every little hidden injustice, it's eternally documented right there. But in total contrast, we have Iliyin. This is an exalted, elevated register connected with supreme honor and paradise, which preserves the good deeds of the righteous. It's a really powerful visualization of ultimate justice. Absolutely nothing is lost. Next up is Section 4, the stain on the heart, spiritual consequences. Now, it's not just about some cosmic books recording our deeds up there. There is an immediate, internal consequence right here, right now. Verse 14 introduces a deeply psychological concept called the Ron. It states, nay, but on their hearts is the Ron which they used to earn. Our sources explain this as a stain, like rust, or a dark covering that literally forms on a person's heart. And it forms precisely because of the dishonest dealings they consistently earn over time. It makes sense, right? Continuous sin and dishonesty gradually harden the heart. It's kind of like plaque building up in an artery over time. This stain deeply affects a person's spiritual clarity, making truth incredibly difficult to accept, simply because they become completely numb to their own hypocrisy. Ultimately, this leads to a devastating spiritual veil. Because they chose to veil the truth in their worldly dealings, they end up being veiled from divine mercy in the end, a total consequence of their own actions. Okay, moving right along to Section 5, the ultimate reversal, justice in the hereafter. So this brings us to a really dramatic thematic reversal. In this worldly life, those who commit crimes often laugh at, mock, and sort of wink at the believers, right? They think they've won by cleverly cheating the system. But in the hereafter, the text promises an absolute 100% reversal of fortunes. It says believers will be resting in total comfort, on adorned couches, experiencing eternal joy,
and they will be the ones laughing at the disbelievers. It's meant to be a highly comforting promise that absolute justice will be the final word.
Let's transition to Section 6, Tajweed and Practice Guide, Reciting with Care. So, having explored the really profound ethical meaning of this surah, let's look at how to actually recite it. Our sources highly recommend getting familiar with tajweed, which are the traditional rules for Quranic recitation. For beginners, honestly, understanding just a few key concepts goes a long, long way. For example, mad involves stretching a vowel sound. Idgham is all about smoothly joining sounds together so the recitation just flows. And qalqala, that creates a controlled bouncing sound on certain consonants. Applying these just ensures your pronunciation is smooth, respectful, and accurate. Now, if you're a non-Arabic reader, please don't feel overwhelmed by this. Our sources provide a highly effective, super simple practice method. Step 1, just read the transliteration slowly, breaking it down to a few words at a time. Step 2, listen carefully to a high-quality Arabic recitation to really absorb the rhythm and the unique shapes of those sounds. And Step 3, repeat the lines several times, but be careful not to force unfamiliar sounds from your throat too aggressively. By isolating small parts and repeating this simple 3-step process daily, you are going to gradually build real confidence in your pronunciation. Ultimately, though, understanding this surah is all about application. So what should we really take away from all of this? Well, here are some practical, actionable points derived straight from our sources. First off, we absolutely must practice complete, unwavering honesty in all our business and personal relationships. We need to avoid all forms of cheating and deception. Seriously, no matter how insignificant they might seem in the moment. We should repent regularly to polish our hearts and remove any buildup of that raw and stain we talked about earlier. We've got to strive to treat everyone fairly, and finally, we have to remain patient and steadfast when we face worldly criticism or mockery for choosing integrity over a quick, dishonest gain. I want to leave you with a final, really powerful reflection question from our sources. It invites us all to examine the true measure of our own daily dealings. Do we prioritize integrity even when absolutely no one is watching? When the scales are literally in your hands, what do you choose? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this deep dive has given you some fresh insights for your personal growth. Keep reflecting on these concepts, and I'll see you next time.